So you might have noticed that you're not looking at my face. And that's because my phone is kind of ruined, which means I don't have a camera to record with. Which means, good news is, you don't have to look at my face for once. Instead, I have some footage of me climbing into the ranked ladder in Legends of Runeterra. Since Riot thought my rank should be reset to Iron, because missing one season means, of course, I forgot how to play. And while you admire the degeneracy that is me slapping up some silvers, we're going to discuss today's topic, which I actually thought of after I spoke with my sister, who doesn't play D&D or Pathfinder, about how D&D is anything but a simple system. When I explained to her that the player's handbook alone was 322 pages long, her jaw dropped. I then explained to her that there's an entire book dedicated to monster stats. Many such entries have recycled abilities like claw or jaw attacks, and that there was another 300 pages for DMs specifically, referring to the Dungeon Master's Guide, of course. Naturally, my sister told me she never pick up a game that required her to read hundreds of pages just to play it. And she was right. It is reasonable. I can't think of a good reason for a rule book to be 300 pages long. Surely, it can be shortened or made more concise. I mean, I did believe that there were way too many rules for things that didn't need rules in the book, and I am aware that you don't need to read everything to get by when you're playing, but still. I took it upon myself to start reading the player's handbook and find out whether it really is an unnecessary amount of pages. And to my surprise, it was much, much worse than I thought. I want you to think back to the days, if you're old enough, to when you'd visit Blockbuster, EB Games, or GameStop to find something new to play. I used to look at the back of each of the game's cases to find small bits that told me about the game, and paid close attention to the pictures because they were actually quite telling of what type of game I'd be playing. Whether it was first person, third person, top-down view, turn-based, etc. You'd know so much about the game from looking at it itself. Now, I don't know if you've taken the time to look at the cover art for the player's handbook. It looks really red. I honestly couldn't tell what the heck was going on or what I was supposed to be looking at. And I was even more confused when I looked at the full cover art. I must have said something along the lines of, "That's what's happening?" to myself while I was reading it. Little did I know that the confusion and lack of context I got from the cropped cover page was very telling of what lied ahead. I'm actually trying to make something of a career with tabletop games, so I am so happy that my first introduction was not reading this book. Instead, I was dragged by my heels to play a game that I thought was lame at the time. Funny how life works. Anyways, this introduction was long-winded, sometimes had unnecessary words and large segments, strangely structured, and actually had some basic level grammatical errors. You know how I mentioned that I would pay close attention to the pictures of the game I was purchasing? Can someone tell me why the pages in this book look like some aged parchment? Like, why does it look so dated? Is the aesthetic really worth it? I know I've been ragging on D&D lately with especially my last few videos, but just know that Paizo isn't safe either. I'm gonna stash their weave once I'm done with this handbook, or until I can afford a camera, whichever comes first. Now, page 4 starts with a preface, a very useless preface. It actually starts with something like, "Once upon a time, long, long ago." Like, whoa, listen, if you're an aspiring writer, just know that the first sentence you write is absolutely vital. You need to capture the reader immediately. TikTok videos are max 1 minute, and I know y'all be leaving my videos halfway, so I know that you need to capture your target audience, player base, or whatever right away, or they're gone. Straight up, if I read that, I would have been so put off I would have put the book down, and this channel wouldn't exist. It then goes on to talk about a bunch of people in Minnesota or whatever, and I couldn't help but think, what does this have to do with the game though? Of course, we know they're trying to pay homage to your boy Gygax, but someone just picking up this book does not care. When I pick up a game, I want to know what the gameplay is like right away, and that whole preface wasn't helpful at all. A little later, Wizards start to toot their own horn, saying almost every modern game, whether played on a digital device or a tabletop, owes some debt to D&D. And look, I'm no RPG historian, but I was just like, what about your debt to Tolkien? Are halflings not hobbits? Like, you can miss me with that, but that's light. What really got me was when I read to play D&D, and to play it well, you don't need to read all the rules. Then why do you have 322 pages of exactly that? If you have anything in your system that isn't absolutely necessary for the game, it should not be there. Everything in this book should be informative and work towards creating a fun gaming experience. Oh my gosh, when I read it, and when I read this, it says, none of those things have any bearing on what's best about the game. In my humble opinion, the function of rules should be to create an avenue for which your players can make the exact character they want to play, their fantasy, their dream character. The rules should also express and facilitate their intent, what they want to do. Gaming in general it is about the player's input and their impact on the current medium they're enjoying. It's what sets it apart from watching a movie or reading a book. Think of it like coding games or things in a video game in general. Character creation, for example, when you code options, create textures, and all that stuff for character creation, it should be with the intent of your players interacting with it and getting something out of it, some relevant outcome. But imagine character creation being part of a video game and it didn't matter at all whether you interacted with it or not. It would again beg the question, why is this here in the first place? I'm looking at you, Dark Souls. You really had me there making a character only to reveal that I look like some undead reaper looking word I can't say on YouTube. The next part of the preface, moving on, starts to weirdly explain that playing with friends is fun and how you'll have all these cool in-jokes and memories to look back on. This whole preface did nothing to build anticipation, interest, or more importantly, explain what the game is like in a clear and concise way. It was like a prologue from a book. I don't know why people do them, prologues, because people skip over those things anyways. That's one less page in this long PHP that they could have done without printing. On the next page, the introduction section finally starts to get me thinking about how it might be really cool to play this game, but it then dives into what is supposed to be an example of gameplay. It has the DM set the scene and had the players attempting to interact with the world. They did it like a screenplay thing. They showed everyone's names and showed the stuff that they were saying. I especially like that one part, by the way, where it mentioned the gargoyle grinning hideously. Although I will say that while it's cool to delve into one of the 5 senses, or some of them in general, you don't want to turn your game into an info dump as you see here. After the word wait or hideously, the descriptions should have stopped. The DM weighed in way too heavy on the visual senses. I like to describe a room as the scene progresses. Maybe after one of the players make a perception check, I then make note of the gargoyles or some other details that I think are relevant or are just very cool to notice. That way, the environment evolves as the party navigates their way through it and you're not just info dumping them. Also, I'd like to point out that one of the quote-unquote players, Amy asked a funny question. Amy said, do I think we can get across it, the bridge, or is it going to collapse under our weight? Now, that's obviously a leading question that I wouldn't be able to answer as a DM, because like if I say yes, the players won't cross it, and if I say no, the players will cross it. Instead, I always end up saying something along the lines of, you'll have to roll to find the answer to that question, and even then I may not answer it straight up. Instead, I'd give a very relevant amount of information that strongly hints to one answer, but I let one player decide what their character thinks of that info. But the most important thing is the whole scenario written out is completely useless for people who already know about D&D, and is especially useless, or at least confusing, for a new reader. And that's because they reference a dungeon master without explaining who they are or what they do. Context is really important when you're introducing people to a game, and when it's a long book, it may frustrate them when they're already not understanding things they're reading. And I know they didn't mean for it to be implied, because they explain it later on the same page, but after. Why after? By the way, I love how they reference a dungeon master as a referee, like actually, because that really is what they are. DMs have to know how to navigate a table of different personalities, know how to exercise conflict resolution when necessary, and make sure everyone is operating within the bounds of the rules that apparently don't matter. I think a lot of DMs forget that D&D is a social game. Your world, your maps, and NPCs you've unnecessarily written deep backstories for don't matter if no one is paying attention or playing your game because of disruptive players, or that no one is on the same page because there was no session 0, etc., etc. To run a game, you need to know how to run a table, and I think using the word referee really drives that point home. I don't agree, however, with the word storyteller. I prefer narrator, because not every game needs a story, but every game does need someone to narrate what's happening, what's around the players, all of the things. In my opinion, the job of a DM is to narrate, run the table, and put obstacles in front of the players. These obstacles, being encounters, are difficult situations that have positive or negative repercussions on the party's goals based on whether they succeed or fail. That's the DM's job. Now, moving on, the info in this introduction is actually really helpful in many ways. It could have just been better arranged for context. What sucks is everything here is summarized in a way that's more concise and to the point in the how to play section. So that's one more page the PHB could have done without. They start describing the setting, which is fine, I guess, later. I'm not a fan of the multiverse idea, so I'm not going to comment on it much, but I will say it doesn't take 4 long paragraphs to summarize your setting, and if it does, you need to trim the fat. Aren't the editors supposed to do that, by the way? And what is this sentence? Within this multiverse, there are endless... What? This is basic grammar, guys. Multiverse is singular, so the next word here should be is, not are. It's like saying, this country are full of an endless variety of provinces. Look, even if you're referring to something that has multiple things in it, it's still one thing, like a group. Instead, it should be this country is full of an endless variety of provinces, and it should also be within this multiverse is an endless variety of worlds. Like, where are your editors? How can you have so many editors and miss this? There isn't only one grammar error that I found, but I'm just too lazy to point them all out, and this script is starting to look a little long, I think. The next part includes this segment where it explains the type of dice used in the game, but takes a moment to talk about 1d3s and 1d2s. What? Just stop, you're confusing the new players, and not once in the player's handbook is a D3 or a D2 even used. Not that I know of. I've been running the game for almost 4 years now. In the segment called Using This Book, it explains how the rules in Part 1 rely on rules in Part 2 and 3. And if that's the case, I think you need to restructure your chapters, because flipping back and forth between pages is not a fun experience, gameplay-wise or just in general, and probably causes more people to miss certain nuanced but important and impactful rules than you might think. I checked out when I read them explaining for the 3rd time what adventurers are during, towards the end of page 7. I gotta say, I think wizards get away with this stuff because of the foundation of D&D that they built over time. because so far this stuff is honestly poorly written and repetitive. I just hope that the next few chapters I end up reading aren't as bad as this one. Anyways, it's a bit of a long video, I think. Me just kind of reading and talking about my findings. I did record a video where I ended up actually doing a live reaction, but that ended up being an hour long because I really got ranty. I was actually really upset. Anyways, leave a like if you like the video and subscribe, or I'll showcase a Satan, GMO, deck in my next video. Oh, and hit the bell icon so that my tiny channel doesn't get lost in the algorithm. Let me know what you guys think of this type of video. This is what I got because I don't have a camera. I do enjoy playing Legends of Runeterra. This is like my second favorite game that I've been playing this year. This is my favorite multiplayer game so far, like period. Like I've really enjoyed this game. If you haven't played it already, it has amazing art, and it is one of those card games that don't make you have to spend hundreds of dollars on cards. It actually caps you for how much you can spend in the game. So at least last that I checked, you have to actually play the game to unlock cards. So it's a really great game. Anyways, I also don't want to leave you hanging because there's about 4 minutes left of this game, and I'm sure you probably maybe want to see the end of this. This will give me an opportunity to actually talk about this game right here. So I'm running a Heimerdinger Vi deck. This is a game by the way, is based on the League of Legends lore, which is why I love it so much, because the world is actually so beautiful and the artwork in the cards is amazing. So yeah, playing a Heimerdinger Vi deck, and this is based off of this concept I saw like many months ago, where people mixed the Shadow Isles region with the Piltover region and made this deck that was mostly spells and included basically only 3 copies of 2 different champions and 3 copies of this one card called Karina Veraza, I think. Basically, when you play her, she mills the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you'll deal 1 damage to everything based on how many spells you draw out of the 5 that you mill. And the idea is pretty cool. It made me think, hey, maybe I could do some sort of Karina deck with Piltover and the new region Targon. I mainly meant for it to be a Jinx deck, if that makes sense. I thought that I could use gems as part of the discard synergy, but it just didn't work out. I eventually moved over to Vi, and then I realized, well, if I'm running a Vi centric deck with Bastion and things like that, I should just run Heimerdinger. So that's what I'm doing here, and this deck is actually pretty strong. As you can see, and as you've been seeing, most of what people try to respond to me with just doesn't matter. I just eventually overpower and outvalue people over time, because this deck has the potential to be a control deck when it wants, a mid-range deck when it wants. As you can see, I have bodies on the board, it's no problem, and I can also be a combo deck. I use that 2 mana card you see in my hand, 2 copies of them, a Somethingworks map, so that I can push damage using elusive units. That's how I bypass the other board stuff. It works great with Vi when you manage to get the Somethingworks map plus Bastion on Vi. Means that people really just can't stop her. Not too many people run elusives, so it tends to help as a great finisher. I don't need to, but it's part of the deck. Sometimes it's actually 1v games where I wouldn't have won with value, and that's what combo is supposed to do. It's supposed to beat value-based decks. So yeah, this is really fun. The other person that I'm playing looks to be playing some sort of Leona Daybreak Celestial deck. I do have a strong disdain for Targon, which might sound hypocritical because I'm running a Targon deck, but there's only a few Targon cards that I run. Most of it is Piltover cards. I'm only in Targon for the Bastion spell. And this person probably realizes that it's pretty much just about over. I don't need to attack with anything else because they can just block the next attack because I am at 9 health. But I literally don't care. Worst case scenario is I use my 8 mana card to draw 3 cards and find some sort of damage to finish them off. And they're probably realizing this game is over. Yeah, I won't get to show the next game, but I did end up ranking up. I'll probably be gold the next time you see me. I want to get back to where I was before, which was 1 game away from Diamond, Plat 1. We'll see if I could do that with my incoming videos. See, like, that doesn't matter because I already have the turrets generated from Heimerdinger. The deck is so strong. I play spells and I get bodies from playing the spells. I get like double the value. It's hard to come back from a Heimerdinger that gets to stick on the board. They have one HP, but they have to kill me this round. They might not even get the chance because I'll just use my 8 mana card, draw 3 cards, and get some sort of damage out. I'm not sure what this Aurelion Soul is for. It's 10 mana gone. 10 mana do nothing. Congratulations. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anyways, that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out Runeterra. Please come back for some more videos. I'll probably be checking out the next chapters. Let me know what other parts of the book you'd like me to read. And I'll see you next time.